So now that we know that our cultural systems were formed from a state of amnesia, so that means our educational systems were formed from that state of amnesia, religions were formed from that state of amnesia, and so now we need to start changing our conception of what education should be and what religion should be. Our original religion was just being in tune with the mind of God. Everything was based on light and sound. Everything was based on the light of photosynthesis of the sun transforming us, just like flowers and trees, bringing consciousness to us continuously to keep reviving our life. And we would create these new ideas, and they would just be born through this photosynthesis of this light and the sound of the music of the spheres. The music of the spheres was the consciousness spinning around in this tool called this Merkaba. The Merkaba is just a tool to represent the spin speed that creates the spheres upon spheres upon spheres. And these spheres create this weaving of consciousness which spins into a consciousness that sounds like music. So it's called the music of the spheres. So when we put this light and sound together, we have this consciousness that just continuously transforms and blooms like a flower and creates whatever we need to. But none of those things were contained in our education system because we had amnesia. So now we have been given back all of the things that we forgot over these thousands of years because there are many guardians channeling their teachings through people on earth, and many people becoming in line with their higher self, revealing these realities through them. So now we have these children being born on earth that have their original consciousness. They're being born already receptive to their higher consciousness, to their higher self directing them, to their new DNA being activated. They're not born with the same DNA that their parents were born with. They're born with this original divine template that we had before our amnesia. They're being born with the memory that we had before our amnesia. So these children do not have the amnesia that the rest of the world who created these cultures and religions and education systems. So what's happening to the children is they're being labeled attention deficiency disorder or autistic children, or these children with some kind of a disease. And the reality is that the children do not have amnesia. Their autism, that's what we see as autism, is to them just always communicating internally with their higher self. And they don't really have a need to communicate verbally outwardly so much because they're living in a very different state of consciousness, and a telepathic consciousness that allows them to communicate internally with their higher self and their soul and everyone in their soul family, their soul matrix. So they've already learned to communicate through frequencies. And then the problem that's labeled attention deficiency disorder, this comes from children being born who are called indigos. That's not the proper name. They're truly Palladorians. They came from the race line of the Palladorians who already had their fifth dimensional template within them. But that's another story. So these children who people are now calling indigos or crystal children, and they have many other names, but what it means is children being born with their divine template not damaged as it was after the Tower of Babel or because of the Tower of Babel. So their original consciousness is being born that was taken away from us because of the Tower of Babel. So this consciousness being born on earth in these children is a consciousness that conceptualizes. They see the big picture of things. They see the concepts. They can write stories about it. If you guide them, they have a memory of the big picture of many things. If you ask them about their soul, if you ask them about where they came from, if you give them a little bit of guidelines, they would remember everything very quickly. But instead, the way the education system is set up, it is a linear system. These children are not linear. They do not take step by step by step. Let me explain to you in the methodology of education where this linear system comes from. It's called total physical response. It's the way a person that is about 1 year old learns a language. They learn by hearing things repeated over and over. They learn, I am walking, I am walking, I am walking to the refrigerator, I am picking up my pencil, I am doing this. It's based on this form of learning this relationship if I am in relationship to the other things around me. So that's how these cultures with amnesia develop their language. That's the way everything in education is developed. It's developed around my relationship to the other things. You have the subject, the verb, and the object of the sentence. You have this one, two, three. And because we had amnesia, we couldn't figure out how to do anything without putting everything in these steps of one, two, three. And we developed these process in all of these cultures of teaching language this way, I in relationship to other things. So all of these languages have a subject, a verb, and an object. But not all cultures put those in the same order. Some cultures have the subject and the object before the verb because they think the relationship is more important than the activity. So there's always this linear arrangement of reality in education. So these newborn children do not have that linear conception. They have the conception of everything, all that is. All that is. God is omnipresent. Everything is here. Everything is supplied to me. I am the mind of God, and everything automatically manifests to me. Everything is. So why in the world would they want to take a stupid test based on the linearity of memorizing a set of stupid rules that were created by people who had amnesia and then created cultures to remove their amnesia so that they could put together this world based on these concepts of an illusionary world they created. So these children aren't interested in this. So they're going to sit in the classroom and they're going to be doing telepathic communication with their higher self while the teacher stands in front of the class and babbles on about some linear concepts. And then they're going to be labeled as as being deficiency in their having a deficiency in their attention because they're not interested. So the education needs to be changed to incorporate the new consciousness that is on earth and to try to begin removing the old consciousness. So education must be changed. The first thing that education can and will do on earth is when enough children, enough young people are educated about the cause of war, that which is not in a line with oneness, is not in alignment with the things that they know are real, they're just not going to promote it anymore. They're just going to form chains of peace circles. They're going to hold hands arm to arm all around the world and just demand peace. And they have no interest in anything else because they're returning the consciousness to us that was ours before the Tower of Babel. So the world needs to know that all wars have been created through magnetic sound waves of consciousness that were planted and misaligned in the earth to connect with race lines who are off of the planet, who were trying to maintain control, manipulate, and destroy the planet Earth. That is how the consciousness was manipulated to create wars. That is how the consciousness was manipulated to create terrorists. And these terrorists and war zones were placed in the exact places on Earth where these race lines, who are not part of the angelic human race line, place them to create chaos, continuous chaos, to feed off of the negative energy of the earth. Well, those entities who are doing that have not been here since the year 2012. So if we continue having wars that are based on the sound waves and brain wave manipulation that was created by them before, that becomes totally our responsibility now. And the new children being born on Earth, the indigos who have been here for 100 years, and those that have been here for 20 years, and those that have been here for less than that, no longer see any need for war. It has nothing to do with their reality. It has to do with a reality that was based on creating religions, education, and cultural systems out of the state of amnesia. It's an interesting thing to know about how the World War II actually started. We were talking about things being created through brain waves, through sound waves, through stations of consciousness that were not even on Earth. There is ample evidence in Japan that when the naval ship, the naval Japanese ship, received the message that the war was to begin, World War II was to begin, the admiral of that ship was not on the ship when the message was received. The second commander in office of the office was there to receive that message that the war was to begin. The admiral of the ship didn't know anything about it until he came later and tried to find out what went on and where did this message come from. And nobody in Japan knew where this message came from to start the war. The same evidence has been revealed in Pearl Harbor. The men who were stationed at Pearl Harbor at that time also said that the messages that came to Pearl Harbor, they didn't know where they were coming from. They could not trace the source of that communication. So there is plenty of evidence that has shown that World War II was created by messages being sent, by intercepting satellite messages sent to Pearl Harbor and received by the Japanese admiral, that they didn't know where they came from. They were being sent by sound waves projected from outside of the consciousness field of the earth. They were being transferred to earth through these nulls and noids and vortexes within the earth, where these minefields had been planted in the earth's grids to disrupt the original wave patterns that are supposed to come to earth through the 12 Stargate wave patterns. And that pattern of waves was what was disrupted in the Tower of Babel. So these wars, so that's the first war that needs to be forgiven, because that war was created from outer space. Every war that's ever been created on the earth was created from outer space. The people on earth have been in amnesia, they've been manipulated, they have been hypnotized, and they have not been in control of their lives. But now we have children being born with consciousnesses that will not will no longer intercept such brainwave messages. They are totally free from that. They do not have genetic distortions. They do not have problems in their templates that allow that to happen. And then because they are being born here, because this new consciousness is coming through our stargates into the earth, that consciousness is available to everyone, not just the children being born. So that new consciousness is flooding through the stargates back into the grids of the earth and clear into to Mother Earth's crystal heart deep within her core, which is an etheric base. If you go deep within the core to the cosmic core, to the etheric state of consciousness deep within the earth, that is where all of this consciousness is flooding back into the earth, and then the consciousness is coming back out the earth's veins, out into her crust, back into her crystalline grids, and that's flowing back into our consciousness. So the consciousness of these indigo children being born on earth is bringing in portals of consciousness that are streaming through the earth and providing a new consciousness for everyone. Were originally 12 avatar children born on earth that were born with their 12 coded template in place at birth. These were the main children who opened the original portals and stargates to our original consciousness. And all the other indigo children have born in attunement with that reality, or who are here to support this new mission of peace and freedom on earth.